Yes, my G's. Hope you guys are doing great. So I've got a lovely glittery pad for you guys today. And it's kind of a major 13th, but without the third or the fifth. You could call it a D 13th. The root note that I'm writing it in is D. Yeah, anyway, it doesn't really lean on a major or minor, as you see here. It doesn't lean on a major or minor kind of feeling. It's an ambient modal type of pad. And yeah, it can fit in D major, D Lydian, or D Mixolydian vibe, especially. So here is what it sounds like before we dive into the sound design. So I really like those fast, kind of glitchy, glittery movements that are in the pad, right? So that's why I called it the Glitter Kid pad. Anyway, we also make great use of some mid-side EQing. We also use the Bode setting on Serum as well, which is very important to the sound. So what does the Bode effect actually do in Serum? Well, here, the Bode is a frequency shifter, not a pitch shifter. That's an important distinction. Pitch shifter shifts all frequencies by a ratio. Frequency shifter like Bode shifts all frequencies by a fixed amount. 500 plus 500 hertz adds 500 hertz to every frequency. It creates a non-harmonic result, often sounds metallic, robotic, or alien, and it can drastically change the timbre of your sound in unusual ways, which it does for my pad as well. Good for experimental sound design and weird modulation effects. Bode is named after the Bode frequency shifter, an analog module created by Harold Bode in the 60s. Wonderful. So anyway, let's design the first part of the pad without the effects, and we're basically going to be using all of the oscillator sound sources, right? All with unison as well, except for the first one because you can't do it on there. We can quickly throw on a filter as well, just to make it a bit softer for our ears. And you can see we've already got a lot of movement on there. But basically, the sub, that's sort of the root note of the pad, and that's at -2. So it's actually sort of 2 octaves lower than the rest. Got a saw selected here. Then we've got a bunch of other saws. Everything's just saw waves, right? So we've got one here at 9 semitones up from the root note, but the 2 octaves higher than the saw here. We've got another one set to +1 octave and then +2 semitones. So basically plus 14 semitones in total from the root note. And then we've got another one which is +16 semitones from the root note, because you've got an octave going up here, 12, and then +4 on the semitones here, right? And yeah, all of these saw waves have been set to have unison on, and they all have a bit of tube as well, so a bit of distortion on all of them, just changes the timbre of everything a bit. And then as you hear, we've got this low pass filter on, and this is where a lot of the movement comes in, because I've used the LFO1 on the cutoff of the filter, and it's on the Chaos Lorenz mode, and the rate is quite high. It's done off the grid here at about 5.6 hertz. So yeah, around 5.6, create a nice balance. We got some quite audible but fast movement on the LFO, and on the filter. So the frequency position starts off around 500 and it goes up about 22%. It actually tells you here on Serum, that's great. Goes up to just under 3K. A bit of drive and resonance, and everything's going into that, including a bit of noise here. All right, and that the noise is also, I believe I was modulating the noise as well on the Chaos Lorenz here. So the noise actually goes from 0 up to 100. So you maybe be able to hear that noise on its own if I turn everything else off. So it's all following the same movement, right? That Geiger counter noise, the count all the way up and the stereo all the way up. I love that white noise, sounds really great quality. So yeah, all of our oscillators back on. Wonderful. Be great if I could unison the low one as well, but I can't. But anyway, that's basically yeah, most of the work done already in this first section here. I've done a tiny bit of detuning between the oscillators on the fine tuning as well. So just kind of give a little bit of extra separation between everything. And then, yeah, filter 1, obviously that's the low pass. If I set the output destination to go to filter 2, and then here on filter 2, I've then applied a notch filter. It's sort of a peak filter actually, so it's sort of the opposite to a notch, but it's yeah, it moves the frequencies around in the mid-range a little bit. Also on the cutoff here, set basically starting at 366 and going up to almost 1.5k. So all following the same crazy Chaos LFO again. And yeah, this is mixed in as well, 74%, so it's more of a subtle movement for the mid-range. So next we can jump over to the effects and we can start adding in the Bode first. So the Bode makes a big difference straight away. Makes everything much softer and changes the whole space, because I've used actually the Bode on 100% mix. And so basically you got to turn the blur up. So I've got the blur all the way up. And I've just played with the direction as well here, and that made quite a big difference to the sort of perceived stereo image of the sound. So the direction's on to the left around 46%. Everything else is pretty much the same. The width is all the way up, the shift and the range I haven't touched, but the blur is on 100. The mix is on 100, so everything's going through the Bode, the frequency shifter, and it's all being recreated with the new harmonics, everything. So it's completely convoluted the whole sound. All right, a touch of chorus next, only about 12%. A little bit of dimension, making the size quite nice and large, and a bit of detuning on the hyper as well. Makes things really, really nice and wide, and we're going to control that width with the mid-side EQ in a moment. Next, I've got a reverb on, and the mix is set to about 28%. Really big hall sound, puts it into a massive kind of space, but I enjoy that. Then we got a bit of an extra notch filter here. Here's the peak mode again, but this time it's not boosting. It's actually detracting some frequencies around 190 hertz and going up to about 1k on the fast Lorenz LFO again. And the thing about pads, especially when you're stacking loads of saw waves together, it gets really, really blurry and messy in the mid-range really quickly. So this is where I decided to sort of remedy that and yeah, put some like controlled movement into the mids to take some frequencies out. And I've taken it like a step further here with an EQ, because you can see in this EQ here, if I turn this one on, you can see how loud the kind of mid-range is in the analyzer. Like really from here up to here, it kind of sticks out quite high above everything else. So I sort of take out a bunch of those mids around sort of 660 hertz, quite nice and wide, so getting quite a lot of them. And that helps balance out the pad, so it's not so boomy in the middle. So usually, always on pad sound design, I'll take out some mids, like in a nice gentle slope to make it less boomy. Then, this is where I for the first time ever, used the mid-side splitter in Serum. And basically this has been great to EQ out the lows of the sides. So on here on the sides, I've selected the equalizer and I've done a nice low cut around 160 hertz. You can really hear everything that becomes mono when I take everything out. But yeah, it's sort of around 150, 160, tightening up the low end, so it's a little bit more mono in the low end. Just helps the pad feel a bit clearer and a bit cleaner. And then a tiny high shelf boost, around 3k and up, to finish it off. Adding that brightness back in, because the Bode actually took out a fair bit of brightness. if I take that off, it's a bit drier and a bit more gritty in the high end, but because it's a pad, I kind of wanted it to be soft, so I've definitely left the Bode on for this one, as the Bode does sort of soften everything as well at the same time as it changes the harmonics. But yeah, that's basically the Glitter Kid pad then. I'll drop this one on Patreon as well. This you can download it via there. I may also drop some samples from the last 2 videos I did. The kind of atmospheric and cinematic effects I created, the movie Rumble, got the sample for that, and also we've got the sample for the drone intro I did 2 videos ago. Just check on my channel and you can go back and see those. I'll drop the samples for those 2 cinematic effects and this pad all in one little folder on Patreon, so they'll be available for all the paid members on there in case you want to grab the sounds yourself. But yeah, that's the Glitter Kid pad. So a bit of a different pad to what I normally make, because it's a really, really fast sort of fluttery one, whereas usually I make them quite slow with the movement. So it's a little bit different to previous pads that I've done. But I hope you guys resonated with that. I hope you enjoyed that. May I remind you as well, if you want Serum presets, I've got a bunch of preset packs on my website. Actually, only one Serum pack, but we've got tons of Vital packs as well. We got phase plant packs and even a current pack. Check out the links down below for those joyful synth packages if you want any. Also, I've got lessons available, production lessons. Feel free to book in via my calendar. Link for that is down below. Email me if you want any more questions on my mentorship services, how they work and everything like that. Mixing and mastering is also available. You can email me for a quote on that. And finally, come along and join me on Patreon. You'll get these sounds, and if you join the Fireteam tier, you can get in our Discord. We've got a great community where we'll be doing feedback live streams, group masterclasses, and all that kind of good stuff coming up very, very soon. All right, that's it for me today. More from me soon. Much love.